So Daniel is being threatened, with being thrown in the lions den. These guys, they come and they gather him up. They arrest him. They've got their pound of flesh now. They're taking him uh, to Darius, and with this charge to throw him in the lions den. And uh, you know, uh, from what I understand, you go back to the Assyrians who were before the Babylonians. The Assyrians would capture lions and keep them in a pit or cages, and then the kings and the nobles they would let the lions loose and then try to hunt them down for sport. The Medes and Persians, they kept lions, and also as a side benefit, if they wanted to get rid of somebody, they'd feed them to the lions. Same is true with the Roman Empire. They had a thing practice called damnatio ad bestias, which throw them to the lions, condemned to the beast. And they're at that's kind of the halftime show at the Coliseum. Uh, Terrible thing, but throwing someone to the lions. And so here, folks, we're talking about real pressure. We live in a culture now today where Christians taking a stand for Christ, you might not be thrown to the lion's den. But so they bring Daniel to Darius, and Darius is horrified. He didn't see the ramifications of what was going here, the play that was going on. That this was really a conspiracy against Daniel, and he tries everything that he can do before sunset to overturn what had happened to get Daniel set free, and his hands were tied. And they take and they throw Daniel into the lion's den, and Darius calls out. Darius is heartbroken, but he says to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve, continually rescue you." And then he put a stone over the entrance to the den of lions, and he had his signet ring put in the clay as that this cannot be opened under penalty of death. And all the nobles, all those 120 other, or at least the other two administrators, they put their signet ring in there and ground it in joy that they got their pound of flesh, and they went away. But notice, early the next morning at dawn, the king went out there. Why did he go out there? I think the king had a belief that Daniel was different than anyone he'd ever met. That's why he was going to put him in charge. This man of prayer and thanksgiving. He goes out there and he has the stone rolled away, moved away, and he cries down to Daniel, "Servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to rescue you from the lions?" And I wonder if there was a pregnant pause, a silence, and then Daniel cries out, "May the king live forever." Can you imagine this? Is the king Darius shocked? He had to be. He says, "My God sent his angel and shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me because I'm innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done anything wrong against your majesty." And the king had Daniel lifted out of the den. He had those other guys that had tricked him thrown into the lion's den. Before their bodies even hit the floor, their bones are broken and they're munched up by by the lions. But folks, we have a God that can deliver us even from the lion's den. We have much to give thanks for God's deliverance tonight. We think of the pilgrims, William Brad, for all that you went through, and God helped them through this very difficult time in establishing our nation. And we see other Christians in the past, like Corrie Ten Boom. She wrote about how she and her sister they had been, their family, harboring and hiding Jews and in the Nazi regime there in Holland, and they were caught. And she and her sister Bessie, they were put in Ravensbrück concentration camp, a terrible place, and barracks where their barracks that they were moved to was right next to this torture chamber, basically, and they could hear the cries day and night of these people being tortured, and just it was hellish. And she wrote about how terrible the conditions were, and they were packed into this barracks. These women were, and the only thing they had to sleep on was these platforms, and they had a little bit of some straw spread out for them to lay down on. But that straw was infested by fleas and lice, and it was crowded and it stunk. But yet, in the midst of that situation, Corrie ten Boom and her sister, they started teaching people the Bible and praying, and they had a Bible somehow in there. And one night, her sister Bessie was reading a verse, 1 Thessalonians 5:18. Paul wrote, "In everything give thanks, for this is God's will concerning you in Christ Jesus." And Corrie ten Boom's sister said, "Hey, we need to do this." And they began praying, giving thanks for their barracks, giving thanks for their Bible, that they were blessed to have a Bible that they could still read from, and they gave thanks for it because it was so crowded. That just allowed more people to hear the good news of Jesus. And then Bessie says, "I give thanks for these fleas and lice that infest this place." And the others said, "Why would you do that?" And she said, "It's because of these lice." And they found out that the German guards did not want to go into their barracks and bother them because they didn't want to get the fleas and all these lice on them. And so they left them alone. So even the fleas they saw as part of God's deliverance in this difficult time. And I read another story about a missionary couple, Darlene and Russell. I have to look at it here. Darlene and Russell Deibler from Iowa right before World War II. They went as missionaries to New Guinea, to Papua New Guinea, and they went into the deep jungle areas to reach out to people never been reached before. But when after Pearl Harbor, the Japanese arrested all the Americans and took them to a POW camp. And Darlene's husband Russell was taken to a different place, and she found he was killed. But once again, she began praying and witnessing to others at the camp. And the guy that ran the camp, his name was Yamaji, very brutal and tortured prisoners and interrogated them brutally. And one day she was brought in, and she had already been praying for this man to be saved, and she began witnessing. The man left the room, and she thought she heard him crying. Later on, a few weeks later, she was taken as prisoner to the headquarters to be interrogated as a spy by much stricter people. And she was about to a guy had drawn a sword, was about to kill her when she heard a Jeep come up and the door open and some voices. And all of a sudden she was loaded up and taken back to camp. She found out later that it was Yamaji. See, the Lord delivered her, and she gave thanks. Folks, we have much to give thanks for. In fact, Darius wrote a letter, a decree here in verses 25 through 27. We read, "Then King Darius wrote to all the nations and peoples of every language in all the earth, May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." Isn't that amazing, folks? We give thanks to a God who delivers us in our everyday problems, but also the big and the small things. He meets our needs, yes, but we give thanks as Daniel did, praying and giving him thanks for his powerful deliverance. Uh, you know, Darius sent out this this letter, to this decree, let everybody, to all the nations, people of many languages, that they should fear and reverence the God of Daniel, the living God of Daniel, the God who delivers. His dominion is everlasting one, and he does powers and signs and wonders, and he rescues and delivers. He's delivered Daniel from the lions. Folks, when we give thanksgiving for God's deliverance, is a witness to the world. We need to be a thankful people. William Bradford wasn't shy. He gave God the thanks. And so do we. Corrie ten Boom, all these others, they give God the thanks. This Thursday, it'll be the Thanksgiving Day Parade, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and they'll spend millions of dollars promoting a number of things, and some of it will be fine, and some of it will just be pure garbage. But very little thanks to the one true living God who delivers. Let's commit to being a people thankful for God's deliverance. Think of how Daniel, though he had done nothing wrong, but how his enemies wanted him put to death. Think of Jesus. Think of how Jesus, whose enemies wanted him dead and gone, and they had him arrested. Think of King Darius, knowing that Daniel was innocent, yet he had no other choice to throw him into the lion's den. Think of how another ruler named Pilate, governor of Judea, knew Jesus was innocent, and it was only out of envy that that his enemies had brought him to him, but yet he felt the pressure. He gave into the cries to crucify him, crucify him. Think of Darius having the stone placed over the entrance of the tomb and him of the lion's den, and putting his imprint into that. And think of how the chief priests came to Pilate saying, we want you to put a seal on that tomb and a guard on that tomb so that this deceiver, can't get out, no more deception. Think of Darius going to that lion's den dawn of that day of the week. I want to imagine that it was a Sunday morning that Darius went, and he had to take that stone off, and the seal is broken, and he cries down, Daniel, has your God delivered you? Has the living God delivered you? And Daniel says, yes, he has. Yes, he has. And Daniel was lifted out of that pit of death as a living witness. But think of how the women that Sunday morning, early before dawn, they went to another place, and but they found the stone was rolled away there too, and the seal was broken, and the tomb was empty, and Jesus was alive. Folks, we have a God who delivers through his resurrection power, whether it's Daniel from the lion's den or you and I from the issues that we go through in life. We have a God who delivers that we give thanks to today. I want to encourage you, not just this Thursday coming up, but you begin giving thanks and making prayer and kneeling before God and depending on him a part of your everyday life. And folks, that will be a powerful witness to the world. Amen.